Happy Women's History Month! Since 1995, after a near 15-year battle, presidents have issued a series of annual proclamations designating the month of March as Women's History Month. These proclamations celebrate the contributions women have made to the United States and recognize the specific achievements women have made over the course of American history in a variety of fields. T3 Diversity Solutions salutes women across the United States and around the world for their valiant achievements in every area of life. To every woman who paved the way for another woman's success, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
businesses have life cycles just like humans, and what they need at each stage will be different.
Yeah, it's a setup to make you get up and get into it. Allow me to influence your financial affluence.
It's a setup to make you get up and get into it. Allow me to influence your financial affluence. The six-figure setup.
But nothing in this world that I like more than checks. Money. All I really wanna see is the money.
Go get the money, go get the money.
Gotta cut my check.
The six-figure setup.
You may know her as Gigi, the 5-foot-tall business and ministry consulting powerhouse. But what you do not know about her may surprise you. In the guest chair this week is Genesis Dorsey, the business and ministry world's go-to for all things graphic and web design. After being thrust into the family business due to tragedy, she was able to turn that into a brand that has impacted tens of thousands around the world. You don't want to miss her six-figure secrets or this episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Six Figure Setup Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Gillespie, and I'm so excited to be back with you all for another amazing episode. Listen, we have been interviewing some phenomenal people. If you were tuned in last month and you were able to hear all of the amazing interviews that we did, it was literally a month of interviews, which is very rare for me. I typically try to incorporate some here and there, but last month was all interviews, and we're going to continue that this month. We are now in Women's History Month, so it is a brand new month. Super excited about all that this means for our community, all that it means for women business owners, and just what it means for you. So today I have a very, very special guest with me. This is someone who I've literally known at this point for probably like 7 or 8 years. It's been a really long time. She is a wonderful friend of mine. We have partnered together in business over the years. A strong woman of God. Just so many amazing things that I can say about our guest today. So as you heard in the introduction, I have the privilege of hosting and having with us Miss Genesis Dorsey, better known as Gigi, and even better known as my good sister friend. And again, someone I'm just so excited and grateful that I've been able to do life with for so many years. As a proud Delawarean and an avid golfer, like my sis really golfs, and she's actually really good at it. I need to get out there on the course for her so she can teach me something. But she serves entrepreneurs and creatives as a business consultant and speaker. She has spent the past 10 years plus working with faith-based organizations of all sizes, as well as small business programs and events nationwide. Her passion centers around helping small business owners and growing ministries to develop a faith-based infrastructure with a clear vision, mission, and offers. Genesis has helped me throughout the years to really get crystal clear about what I want to offer to my audience. Anytime that I have found myself getting off track, she is one of the many people who I know that I can go to for guidance. When I have dealt with, struggles personally, she has been there for me, literally like You all have heard me share my story about 2019 when I was behind on my mortgage, and Gigi was one of the people I called to pray for me and to just ask her to cover me in prayer. And she literally came back and was like, "All right, let's create something. I'm gonna bring you in on something. We're gonna get some money in your pocket." And you need friends like that. I don't even know if she remembers that, but I have never forgotten that. And you need friends like that in your corner. And this Women's History Month, we need other women who help to uplift us, who help to build us up, who don't judge us, who never expose our secrets. Again, I don't even know if she remembers that, but that stayed between me and her. Nothing that we ever discussed until I shared it. But that's the type of person that she is. And that's not just how she works with her friends or how she works with her family, but it's also how she works with her clients. And she has been able to figure out how to balance the work that she does while also serving in her family business, which is one of the things that I'm really excited to talk about today. Again, because we know one another personally. I know how long it took for her to strike that balance. I know the internal and the external things that she had to navigate in order to strike that balance. And I'm so honored to see what is on the other side of trying to get to that point. Her family owns, a couple businesses. They got some things going on, but the business that we're talking about today is the Day School for Children, which is located in Newcastle, Delaware. So if you're looking for a school for your children and you're in that area, please make sure that you check them out. So welcome, Gigi. Did I miss anything in that introduction?
You covered everything.
Good, good. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get into it. I shared a little bit about, our personal connection, and I want to start off with just giving the audience an opportunity to learn more about you and who you are. So I'm gonna toss it over to you because there's so much more to your story. There's so much more to the story of how you've been able to strike that balance, how you even got involved in the family business. Like, there's a lot of backstory. So I'm going to toss it over to you. Can you just share with people how you got to this point as a business owner and as a partner in the family business?
So I'm going to give the very short, very short synopsis. I was at Spelman College 2011. I was there for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and our family went through one of the most traumatic situations we've ever been through, and I had to come home and jump into the family business immediately. I was on path to become an osteopathic pediatrician. I already had my college picked out. Shout out to Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine in Philadelphia. I had everything lined up. I had the college, everything, and so Spelman was kind of like that first step. And when I had to come back home, I had to get into the family business, which of course was a private school that my mother started now almost 20 years ago, focused on serving minority or African diaspora-based families, African American, African, Asian, Caribbean, basically melanin families, and helping their children to have an awesome private school education experience, and then for them to proceed after 6th grade to go to a top private school in the state of Delaware, PA, Maryland, New Jersey, or surrounding areas. And so this wasn't just like your normal school. These are parents that are educated, parents that they have visions and plans for their children. They're organized. They're not your average parents. And so, stepping into an environment where I had no education background, I had no business background, I just was enjoying school. And so I got thrown into it, but it was God, because God knew that entrepreneurship was literally going to be my path. I had no clue, though. I thought I was going to be a doctor. And so let's fast forward. I got into the family business, but I was focused much more on like the marketing and things like that. I had no clue, but I put myself into the work, and I learned how, we needed a fresh new website. We needed branding. We needed so many things. I didn't know that's what those things were. I didn't know the official titles. I just knew that we needed a fresh look. We needed an updated web presence. We needed a social media presence. We had been a hidden gem for so long. And so it was time that the world saw the work that my mother was doing, saw the work that, my father and mother had put in. And so that's what got me into being a creative, being a business entrepreneur. And then I started my own business in doing graphic and web design from what I had did for the school in 2014. And then from there, people began to trust me to offer my expertise. I had never saw myself as an expert, but that's what happened. Fast forward, I became the tech director of a major Christian conference in Atlanta. I began to consult with mega churches. I got picked up in New York with a startup to become their community director. And then from there, I got more connections. My Spell House connections, who were pastors, many of them had become pastors. They began calling me and saying, hey, we heard about you. And so then I transferred my web design, graphic design company into more of a design and consulting firm. And then fast forward to now, post-COVID, not post-COVID, but post-pandemonium, let's just say that. I came back to the school full-time. Right before then, I was consulting mega churches, helping them build out digital infrastructures. I was traveling on the road nonstop. So you can only imagine what happened when COVID hit and the need for churches to continue building out those digital infrastructures. I got burnt out. I was tired. I left, came home to the family business, stepped in full time as the director of admissions and parent relations. And now I am officially in the succession plan. I was running away from it. I'm officially back. And now I am transfer my role, and now I'm consulting with the SBA and Women's Business Centers based in Delaware, but also to other entrepreneurship programs, helping to facilitate them. And so full circle.
yeah, that's a heck of a circle. And there's so many things that I took note of as you were telling your story. Let's start with the fact that you did not have any educational like field or business background before you had to jump into the family business. And anyone who has heard your full story, first of all, does know that is the truncated version. But anyone who's heard your full story and had the privilege of doing that knows just how quickly you were thrust into working in the family business. So what was it like? What did you do to help yourself get quickly integrated when you did not have a background in business or in the field that you all work in?
Yeah, so I mean, the juicy details, right, were that my parents went to prison. Right. It was for.
I didn't want to call it out.
Yeah. No, let's talk about it. Right. So, we had accountants that did not give us the best wisdom. And when you're a business owner, you're at fault for anything. Doesn't matter if you need to know everything. Maybe not everything, but as much as you can. And my parents made a mistake, and that's what happened. We fought in appeals, we lost, and so. They went to prison, and my brother's going off to Morehouse, and someone had to step in, and we had employees, but when you're in something like that, you need a family member you can trust. And so I was like, it's going to be me. I had a year and a half at Spelman, it's just might be me. So because of that, not just that, but I had very limited contact. We had emails and phone calls. And so we were very careful, like, you can't talk about everything, just in privacy's sake, And so I didn't get like a sit down of like, here's what's going to happen. And here's like, my parents gave me a book that had all the information like for the family, because you remember we had a household. There's a mortgage. My brother's going off to the checks, and the great thing is we did have an amazing exterior family support in our church family. But there was also, facing the criticism of people who were like, you're Christians, your parents, the school's going to close. We had all these people saying, oh, the school's going to close, we're leaving. And so I was facing a lot of, it's so funny. We even faced criticism today. People are like, how are you still in business? I'm like, because we know what we're doing. We're good at what we do, right? We have results. But during that time, I was dealing with I was dealing with my parents, and losing them and dealing with the responsibility at the same time that I really was not mature enough to handle. I really wasn't. So I had to grow up really fast, and I really had not grown up in all areas. So it was a struggle, and my mother came home after 1 year, but that 1 year was the worst year of my life. My grandmother died in that time as well. When she found out about my father, they wouldn't allow my father to come to the funeral. He was only 2 hours away, and it made, according to law, he should have been able to come. So I was at the funeral. People were like, it was a lot. And so, being that I had no experience, what I found was you need to do what you do best. I did not try to go off and get a quick degree somewhere and be like, no. My role was, what can I do? We have staff for that, right? We have staff that are great teachers. We have administrators that are great administrators. The business at that point needed a leader. It did not need an educator. It needed a leader. It needed someone to say, we're not closing. We're going to stay open. And I was shaking my boots like, I am here, right? And I didn't focus at that time on who I wasn't, because I couldn't be anything else. I couldn't be, the PhD that you may assume that I should. I was going to be Genesis Dorsey, the daughter of Dr. D, and we are not closing. We are staying open. This is the plan. We're going to push forward. We have parents literally trying to unenroll their child. That's fine, unenroll your child. The crazy thing was that within that year of the same catastrophic event, we surged in admission to the point where we went on a waiting list. So the same year we had the News Journal writing articles and there's frauds, all this kind of stuff. The very next year we're filled out in admissions and on a waiting list. So it was one of those things where I had to really learn about just be who you are, because the world will have opinions. I let people have opinions, but show up for those who've said, we want your service. We know what it can do for our child. And then that was that. And it's been set in motion for now almost in 2024, it'll be 20 years.
My God, that is so good. First of all, y'all know I tell y'all every single episode, make sure you're taking notes. So I am over here taking notes. And I love that you said two things. One, that you did not focus on who you were not. And that's something that I think comes up a lot in the interviews that I do for this podcast, that people really, one of the keys to success is just owning who you are, remembering that you are called, and then you will be qualified, justified, glorified, right? So focusing on who you are and just being who you are and not who you are not. But the thing that I want to dig into a little bit more, you said that you had to be, that the organization needed a leader and you needed to do what you did best. So regardless of whether you had business experience or educational experience, you were always a leader. It was always within you. It's been cultivated. Anyone who has had the privilege of being around you and your family personally knows that you are a family of leaders. So I know that was cultivated in you from a young age. How did you know what the business needed?
So it was because it was what I needed. My parents are gone. I needed a leader. I needed someone who could lead me. So I understood. I could literally sense, because I was feeling it too. What do you say when there is no one there? What do you say when there's no direction and you need direction, right? And so it's almost like the same thing that almost disqualified me. Like, you don't have a leader. How can you speak on leadership? Because I know what is needed, because I saw it demonstrated. That was the thing. My parents were not there, but they had demonstrated and prepared me for, as in Esther 4, for such a time as this, to know, here is how you speak. Here is how you feel with your team. Here is how, and it was not, again, I was not perfect. I was making a lot of mistakes. Okay, let's be clear. I was making a lot of mistakes, but I knew that my voice was needed. And what's so crazy was that was the same year God called me to ministry. The same year, 2012, was when God told me that I was called to speak. I was called to speak on a platform level, right? Prior to that, the Lord had raised me up in school and different things like that to speak in front of people. But I never connected the dots on like where that would come about. But that same year, God began to cultivate my ability to speak at a deeper level, but it was just me and him doing that, right? That's where Girls with Royalty came and all that stuff, ministries, and we were like nationwide. But that came in the same year because God was literally like, I am preparing you. You just don't know it, right? And so it was so crazy because as I begin to lead, right, I got wisdom that I have I've never been in leadership. I was never in a leadership cohort or masterminds, but I had watched my mother. I watched her as she led the school from year to year. I watched how she would speak and give her address. And there'd be years I was like, man, she just keeps living. I'll be honest, I would roll my eyes because, she's very prideful of the school. She built it. But I would sometimes roll my eyes in the back of my head like, yeah, okay, yeah. But then when it was time for me to speak, I sounded just like her. So it's because I had an example, and that allowed me to know what to say.
My goodness. So good. So good. So we're going to take a commercial break only because we have to, not because I don't want to keep the conversation going. So when we come back, we're going to finish up because there's a couple of more things that I want to pull out of what you just said. And then we're going to move into talking about the significance of this month, of Women's History Month, and keep it moving from there. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
March 8th is International Women's Day. As a community that started by exclusively serving women of color business owners, we are excited to join in this day of global celebration by hosting a virtual roundtable discussion. Coffee with the CEOs is a virtual roundtable featuring women of diverse nationalities who are leading the way in global business development. Join them as they share their strategies for building business ecosystems on Wednesday, March 8th at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Visit T3DiversitySolutions.com and click the Events tab for more information.
All right, welcome back, guys. If you missed the first part of this, I don't know how you did, because if you got to this point, you should have come to through the first part. But if you did, please go back and listen. Gigi is bringing the heat today, all right? So we just spent some time talking about the childhood or the adolescent experience, the young adult experience that really helped to shape who she is as a business owner today. And she left us with so many gems in terms of being who you need as a leader in your organization, not focusing on who you are, but focusing on what you do best and letting everyone else do their jobs as well. So Gigi, I want to ask you and talk a little bit. You mentioned in the first segment that people were criticizing, and even to this day, people want to know how you and your family individually, collectively, personally, and professionally, how you're still standing. So what do you think that people misunderstand about you as a business owner, or personally, or both? But what do you think that people misunderstand about you the most?
That I'm an extrovert. I am very bubbly. If you put me in an environment, I see someone by themselves, I'm gonna walk up to them. I love to connect people. That has been my personality, is this bubbly, passionate, fiery kind of person, right? But I'm also, I am truly an introvert, all right? People say, oh no, you're an ambivert. No, I'm truly an introvert. And it's because really, most people read it, they define it incorrectly, introvert, extrovert. It's really about where do you draw your energy from. I draw my energy from private time, my own reflective thoughts, just being with myself. I don't draw energy from people. And so that's, to me, what it means to be an introvert. So that's the biggest misconception. I just love people.
Yeah.
Which I think all people should.
Yeah. And being in ministry, I think it's critical. I don't know that everyone does. I think we see that in the things that happen in ministry in terms of, leaders doing things that do not honor God. But you should love people. If you're going to serve, if you're going to be a business owner, I tell people all the time that you trade one bosses for a lot of other bosses, clients, and, the people that you have to serve in a job. You really only have to kind of serve maybe the internal organization. But when you are a business owner, you have to serve everyone, all of the clients, all of those things. So with that, I want to talk about the significance of this month. And this month is Women's History Month. It happens every year in the month of March. And Women's History Month focuses on commemorating and encouraging the study, observance, and celebration of the vital role of women in American history across the board. So we're going to talk about a couple of things in this segment. I want to know about the women who've influenced you most. I know one of the answers, but I think you may have some other answers. But I want to, you mentioned in the previous segment that as you built your business and as you just operated in who you are, that people began to trust you. And we know as a business owner that people buy from you when they like you, know you, and feel like they can trust you. So as a business owner, how do you build trust with your community? That's another thing that I think you're phenomenal at, is building community. So how do you build trust within your community or with your audience so that they will want to patronize your business?
So consistency, but it's not just consistency, because you can do the same thing wrong and never be successful. It is really about being consistent and showing results. That's it. Being consistent in showing results. People want results. And so when you become consistent in showing that you can create those results for others, then people want to hop on that train because they want the same success. Maybe not exactly what that success was, but whatever that success is for them, and they've seen it happen, something that you've done. And so if you want more clients, you want more customers, continuously show results. And this is so important, expand the exposure of how people can see those results, right? If you want more clients, if you want more clientele, if you want diverse clientele in other types of arenas, then those people, they need to see the results. So it's also about, it's first being consistent to even get results. Once you get the results, begin to show them consistently, but then begin to diversify how people are discovering you so that they can discover those results as well. And that's honestly how I've become successful.
Yeah, so good. So can you share, what are some of the qualities that you have found are most important in women leaders? Like, what qualities make a great woman leader?
So I'm going to be very specific with this, because a lot of times when people answer this question, when I was interviewed for the WBC and they asked a similar question like women's leadership, most people, when they talk about what are the great qualities of a female leader, they talk about leadership as a whole. But I think when we think about women, the most powerful tool a woman has is her influence. It's an innate character of women. I believe that God has given us as women is influence. The ability to use our words and our tone and our mannerisms to influence many times without even having to say many words. That's the first thing. The second thing, in my opinion, is the ability of a woman to be a life giver. Life-giving, not because, not all women can bear children. So we're not even talking about the physical. I believe women have been created by God to give life. Our ability, again, through influence, is to stir up life, stir up passion within people. And so I think a great leader is a life giver. She gives life through her words. She gives life through her actions. And then lastly, so influence, life giver, but also too, grace. A woman, in my opinion, at least how I view women, is that we're gracious. At least we should be. And the ability to step into someone's life and feel from them. When you look in the Bible, when you look at the stories of women, you always see compassion, the feel of the woman to sometimes step in where you don't believe grace is deserved, but you gotta give it, because the woman, you can feel it. You can feel like, I think I need to step in here. And sometimes that's where, men are logical but not always gracious.
My
And so a woman can feel that grace is needed right here. And I think that makes a great leader when it comes to being a woman, is that we can understand there's moments of grace where there should be condemnation, there probably should be some judgment, but grace should be there. So I think those are the things: influence, life giver, and grace.
Yes, so good. So I want to dig into this life giver piece a little bit, because you mentioned in the earlier segment that you found yourself in your business. You were like flying all over the country, working with these large organizations and ministries, and you're pouring, and you found yourself burnt out. So you came back home, and this was right around the time of COVID. So you came back home and began to just really focus on working in the family business. A lot has shifted in your business and in the way that you do things. So as a life giver, as a great woman leader, and being a life giver, how do you balance giving life without allowing it to cause burnout? I feel like this has to be one of the things that women leaders are always trying to better understand. So how do you balance, or how do you do both? How do you give life without burning yourself out?
Well, you know me very personally, and so you know the ebbs and flows of my life where I've had extreme burnout. I mean, you would be able to give a first person account of that. That has always been my biggest issue, is taking on more than I can chew. If I had any major flaw, it would be that I overcommit, and then it hurts the quality of my integrity. I'll be honest. I mean, that's been my biggest flaw. My integrity's been compromised many times because I overcommit, and I want to help everybody, and then I end up burning out. And you can't make an excuse for that. And I had come to a point where I just had to stop having bad integrity, and what I did was I had to make less money temporarily. I had to take a step away and leave think about this. You're making money building digital infrastructures for ministries. And then on top of that, you're getting people calling you on the side, outside of just consulting these other consulting agencies. People are calling you because they want you to privately, do these different deals. I was making so much money. I'm talking about so much money, but I came to the point where I said, I can no longer preach boundaries, but they're like almost like yarn fences, not yarn, where you can just easily tear them down, put them up, no. So at some point I was like, what kind of life do I really want to live? And I can't say that I want to be successful, but yet I'm dying and I'm exhausted. That's not success. And so I came back to the business full time. I stopped working weekends. I shrunk down my business dramatically, at least the design company. And now we're at the point where I'm about to close it down. We've shrunk down the clientele. And I am moving now in a direction where I'm strictly the family business, and I am still doing consulting, but only in a certain manner. And so, we're still doing some government kind of things like that, like bigger projects. And then that's it. That's it. And so I had to realize that this does not limit my ability to be a great leader. Does not transform. It's the fact that at some point, you have to build what you've been called to build, and realize that your worth is not tied up in how long the LinkedIn profile is or how long your resume is, but stay in a place where God can still reach you. And you're not trying to reschedule things and try to So that's how I did. I had to shrink down my life dramatically. I had to take a temporary pay cut dramatically in my income so that I could get myself together. And that actually was the best time of my life, was when I shrunk down my income. I was dependent upon family for a temporary period of time. And God honored the fact. He honored it. He honored it so well. The moment I did it, God opened up so many doors dramatically, because he's like, okay, now I can trust you, because now I can hand you even more, because I know that you won't fumble it.
So good.
So that's where I am now. It's taken some apologies. I've had to say sorry to people. I'm still saying sorry to people because I also saw that I lacked integrity. And it was one of those things where I had to get myself together now, where I can lead better, and I can't commit as much, but whatever I can commit, I now can do it completely. So I'm in a happy place now. Yeah.
Guys, this makes me so happy, like just personally, and then also for the people who are listening to this episode to hear that. It's been really interesting, and I love how transparent all of my guests have been, throughout the life of this podcast. Even talking about finances, like in the business space, people don't really talk about taking pay cuts on purpose. I've had a couple of my interviewees mention that, but taking a strategic pay cut or what looks like a setback in the eyes of others, it's really a setup for like your come up. It's a setup for that next level. And I know, like in the church, we have this cliche saying that a setback is a setup for your comeback and all of those things. But that literally has been your testimony. It's literally been your truth.
Yeah, it has. And I think with that, I think the interesting part, especially as entrepreneurs, especially as females, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're trying to prove ourselves to people and men, and just trying to people not to put us in a box. But I'll be honest, one of the things I think really transformed me was just stop trying to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what exactly are we trying to prove? And who? I get it, trying to prove yourself to your kids. But my thing is, at this point, I'm just trying to prove to God that I am who He already said who I am. But I need to show Him that I've heard it. I got to show Him that I believe it, because I've been hearing Him, but I need to demonstrate that. And honestly, when you do that, whatever you're trying to prove to other people, like, it's going to automatically happen. Yeah. But just make sure you're proving to God that, what He said, it is what He said, and you're demonstrating that, because that allows you to let go of a lot of stuff. I think that as women, we've been carrying on past trauma, people telling us that we weren't worthy, all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of created a life that we call to be successful, but really we're tired, we're burnt out, but we call it purpose, but it's really not. And we have to come to a place of peace. We deserve peace. We deserve peace.
For sure. For sure, that I know who God says I am, but I need to live like I heard Him. That is good right there. So I really want to encourage everyone. We're getting ready to go to our last commercial break, but I want to encourage everyone. There's one thing that I really want to pull out of what you just said in this segment, and that is that when you overcommit, that it oftentimes leads to you compromising your integrity. I found myself in the same place last year where, again, as driven, motivated, ambitious women, we want to do all the things. We want to be, operate in the fullness of our calling, not even understanding that at the moment that you become overwhelmed, you are operating beyond where God wants you to be. One of the things I say all the time is that whenever you are overwhelmed, or whenever I'm overwhelmed, it's because we're doing more than God has intended for us to do. We're operating beyond the grace of God. And I know that theologically, there is no bound to God's grace, but there's a bound to your ability. There are limits on your human capacity and ability. So when you find yourself in a state of overwhelm, and if you find yourself in that place now, like we are at the beginning of 2023, so if you're already overwhelmed, you are doing more than what God has intended for you to do. And if you take a moment to step back and take an assessment of your life, you will find that when you overcommit, you are compromising your integrity. And then what kind of light is that shining on you? And what kind of glory is that bringing to God? And this is something that I know that you and I have both seen many times with Christian business owners, is that we do end up lacking that integrity, oftentimes not because we're like bad people, bad leaders, bad money managers, bad time managers. It's because we think that we can be everything to everybody, and we think that operating in the fullness of our calling means that we have to push ourselves to our limits or beyond our limits, and that's just not the case. So again, if you're already overwhelmed and you're listening to this, you need to do what Genesis did. You need to do what I did, and take a step back and look at your plate. Your plate's not going to get any bigger. What happens is that we do it like a Thanksgiving plate, and you know what happens when you pile up or overpile your Thanksgiving plate, you end up being stuffed to the point that you're uncomfortable. When you're doing too much, you're uncomfortable. You can't finish everything that's on your plate. Okay, so take a look at that analogy, that Thanksgiving plate analogy, and look at your life. Your plate didn't get any bigger. But what you did was added more stuff on there. It makes it harder to carry. It makes it harder to balance. It's probably unhealthy if it's piled up like that. Okay. So if you, again, look at that analogy as your life, as your plate, and then ask yourself, do I see things that are unhealthy? Do I see things that are too heavy? Do I see things that make me uncomfortable because it's really beyond the capacity of what I can handle? And if that's the case, you have to be willing to make those temporary sacrifices. You have to say that I'm choosing myself and the things that God wants me to prioritize more than anything. You have to be able to say that. So we're going to go to commercial break. When we come back, it's my favorite part of the show. We are going to have Genesis share her six-figure secret, and then we're going to wrap up for today. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a few moments.
Gone are the days of expensive weekend conferences masquerading as business coaching opportunities. T3 Diversity Solutions is a management consulting firm that helps women of color business owners start, grow, and scale their companies through personalized consulting, access, and support. Their focus on strategic planning and growth is what your business needs to attain and sustain six-figure success. Visit T3DiversitySolutions.com to schedule your 360 business analysis.
All right, welcome back, guys. We are down to the end of our time with Miss Genesis Dorsey, better known as Gigi. She is just a creator of so many different things. She helps in the family business. She is creative when it comes to graphic design, branding design, even though you can't work with her anymore concerning those things, but that doesn't mean that it's still not a gift. She is a speaker, a teacher, a leader, so many phenomenal things, and I'm really glad that we had this time with her. So Gigi, we're down to the end. We're getting ready to wrap up, but in honor of Women's History Month, I want to ask a very special question, and I want to give you an opportunity to shout out the women who have inspired you as a woman business owner.
So I'm sure you can guess the first, which is my mother, Dr. D. Shout out to my mother, Dr. D. I love you so much. And I want to shout out my aunt, T.A. Kuntz. I love her so much. She has motivated me from her expertise in real estate to her expertise in being an author, getting her degrees. I mean, she's just amazing. And then last but not least, I want to shout out the women at the Day School for Children. The women that we have on our staff, they have been my motivation for all these years because they've been my greatest support system within the school, and I think while there are so many women out there that are doing amazing things, they deserve all my honor because they're the ones that I have to serve. And so their ability to do what they do, to be in the classrooms, to work with the children, to produce the results they've produced, and for us to see the generational effect. We have kids now who are in college, who graduated out of college, who are on their way to college, who are getting scholarships in high school. We just got a story a couple days ago. This because of the work that they do. And so I honor them.
Yeah, so good. I love that you honor your team. A lot of times when that question gets asked, we think about the people who are the most popular or, whose names may ring a bell in any room. But those women, like you said, who are in the trenches day after day, those people, who have stood with you and your family and all of that, I think that's really, really special. So this is my favorite part of the show. It's time for the six-figure secret. And you are going to share with us one of your secrets on sustaining six-figure salary. So you can give a couple of things, you can give one thing, but I'm going to toss it over to you. What is your secret to sustaining a six-figure salary?
So I know this may seem like ignorance, right, to say, but you cannot earn a six-figure salary if you're not hitting first six figures in your revenue, right? But it's really important that once you start talking, revenue is one thing, but talk about sustaining your have a salary, six-figure salary. The biggest thing, let me first share my first secret. The first secret that I ever did was I did not actually take anything in the business salary wise. One of the first things I learned was to hire first. I knew that if I wanted a six-figure salary and we needed six-figure revenue, which means that who I hired mattered more in the beginning. It really did. And so you have to get to that revenue goal as soon as possible. So for me, I had no problem, having other ways of earning outside of the business, so that the business got as much money as possible, so that I could hire, I could grow, right, as fast as possible, so that I could have a six-figure salary. Same thing with the school. I take a very minimal paycheck, and there's a reason for that, but then of course you get rewarded, right? And so with that, some very strategic things that I did was I documented every $100,000 I made. And when I say document, what I mean is I documented how it came in, how it was spent, and how we're able to make it again, so that you can find your, as I call it, my 100K strategy. Because over time, as I've learned, you don't have, the bigger you grow, the less distracted you can be. Right? And so usually I scaled down what kind of services I was providing. We became a lot more niche down. Usually the more money you make, the more niche you become, because over time you've established how you're gonna make your money. And then for the salary piece, I begin to really view myself as an employee. So that's why I go back to revenue, right? And sustaining the ability to make over $100,000 as a salary, right? It's important that you use the word salary. A lot of I have met people who've made over $5 million in revenue, but they do not have a salary mindset. They still have this idea that they're the owner. No, I'm an employee of my own company. And when you shift into that mindset, that's actually how you actually get into the six-figure salary, because that's exactly what it is. It's a salary, and so it's based upon revenue. I also believe that you should not reward yourself certain amount of salary if you have not hit those goals. I would minimize my salary when as a owner we were not hitting those goals. So because remember, you have to take care of the ship first. So we can celebrate six-figure salaries when we look at the revenue. And I also believe that you should not be taking six-figure salaries if you have not hit a minimum of $750,000 or up. I think it's almost inexcusable for you to have a salary that's 10%. If you make $1 million and you're having $100,000, I don't know. My account may yell at me a little bit because you're taking 10% of revenue, right? So there's nothing wrong with it, but I think you just got to make sure that depending upon your overhead and expenses, that you have earned the salary. I do not believe that we earn it because we run it. I do not believe that. You do not earn a salary, six-figure salary, because you own it. You earn it just like everybody else. So the last tip I would give is, as a CEO, you should have a job description for your salary. Yeah. You should have expectations for your salary, just like you have everyone else, where, okay, I'm going to hire you at a salary of, let's just say, $75,000. It comes with these benefits. It has this job description. These are things that you must do. You should have the same thing for yourself, because one of the biggest flaws I've seen as someone who has made a six-figure salary, right, and has worked with people, the biggest flaw is they're taking money they have not even earned. And then they're wondering why their business does not have enough in marketing or enough in advertising within marketing, or even investment opportunities. They can't even invest in the business because you're eating it up, because you're not even doing what your job description entails. We're looking at these measurables. Let's go back to just basic words like KPIs, right? I'm looking at the measurables, what you need to hit every month, every quarter. You're not hitting them as the owner. So why do you deserve $150,000? Why do you deserve $200,000? I'm confused, because if you were working for someone else and that was your salary, they would have fired you. They would have fired you. You would have been fired, right? So I've had to have serious conversation with myself and say, I need to actually bring my salary down. Yeah, because I have not earned it. This baby, right? It's like, you don't think you become this baby, but let's just say this ship is sinking because of me, and I'm about to rob it of another 10 grand or whatever because I'm the owner. If you keep on going that way, that ship will be docked and at the bottom of this, either docked or the bottom of the sea, and all because you wanted to have a salary. So to me, I'm gonna really quickly summarize. Number one, document what it takes to make your first 100,000 revenue wise. That's going to give you the strategy for how you're going to get to salary wise. Salaries, these are basics, but a lot of people don't know basics that make a lot of money. So I don't even want to you'd be surprised, right? You know, a lot of people don't do the basics, and that's why we fail. And then once you know that, develop what I call your $100,000 strategy. It may increase to your $200,000 strategy, whatever that is. And once you know that, you're going to know exactly what's bringing in the money. What services do we need to scale down and just strictly focus on? I do believe, again, the more successful you become, the more niche you become at knowing really what your secret sauce is. And then from there, that's how you're going to really sustain. Because your question was, how do you sustain a six-figure salary, right? Not how do you make a how do you sustain it? You sustain it by sustaining the revenue. And you sustain the revenue by keeping yourself accountable as the owner, CEO, whatever your title is. And this is why I go back into job description. Write yourself a job description. And if you must, hire someone externally who can give you the hard truth and keep you accountable. And so you're not pushing things under a rug and then trying to blame your team for why those weren't met. You see, most teams are not going to tell the CEO you aren't doing your job. So you need someone externally, or maybe a business partner that you trust, who's going to tell you you're not doing your job. Okay. And then at the end of every year, we assess everything. We assess, we look at, what we made, what the blind spots were, and if you need to decrease your annual salary. And if you do it, because your job is to keep that vision going. It's not to make yourself be able to pay all these other bills that you decide to add on. That is not the business's job to, no, it is, you need to earn your salary like everybody else. And that's how you sustain it and hopefully grow it.
Girl, listen, you just gave all the gems. Oh my goodness. I had to go to the next page of notes because you just dropped so much. I love that. So if you missed it, you need to go back and listen to it. But just to quickly recap, Gigi told us to document how you make your first 100K in revenue, operate as an employee of your company, reward yourself only after you have reached your goals, have a job description for your salary, and remember that you don't earn a six-figure salary just because you run the business. That is not what that means. So I think a lot of bubbles may be burst, and there are a lot of people who could stand to learn from everything that you just shared. So how can people stay connected to you if they want to, work with you or get more of the knowledge that you have?
So that is a perfect way to segment it, because the knowledge part. So I've shifted out of doing B2C work. I'm now focused primarily on B2B, and helping other organizations to help entrepreneurs. And of course, I'm focusing now on speaking and teaching. I want to give the knowledge, and my particular niche is helping business owners and ministry leaders of churches or ministries, helping them build out with that infrastructure. I'm the frame girl. I'm literally what my name is, which is Genesis. I help you build the beginning of it. I'm not the electrician, the plumber, the interior designer. I am the framer. Okay, we're gonna build the frame, so we have we have really clarity in what are you doing, and what does that even look like before you take it to the next level. And so, if you want to learn and get the information on that through teachings and live streams and resources, then everything is on my website at genesisdorsey.com. And of course, you can also join me on social media. Everything is my name, Genesis Dorsey, on Instagram, Facebook, on YouTube, and just stay connected. And we have an email list where you can, receive information. But that's where I'm at in my life right now, is teaching and speaking.
Yes, I love that. And before we started the episode, Gigi was just mentioning that, she shifted into just focusing on some other things and more passive income. And I think, we touched on this throughout today's podcast episode. I feel like this is kind of the direction that many people are moving in, is just how can they continue to serve the people they've been called to serve without burning themselves out. So Gigi, I want to thank you. Everything that she just shared will be linked in the show notes, in the caption, on the YouTube video, when we share on social media, all of those things. So make sure that you all check out those areas on how you can stay connected with Genesis. Thank you so much for doing this today. And I definitely know that we'll have you back for a future episode.
Thank you so much. It was an honor, and everyone watching. Hope that you learned something, and I cannot wait to connect with you guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, guys, that is the end of our show today. I had a phenomenal time with Gigi. I'm so glad that she was so honest and transparent. The stories that she shared today, I know personally that these are not stories that she shares all the time. So I believe, that God led her to do that because it's going to be a blessing to someone else. So make sure you all follow her on social media, stay connected to her, listen to this podcast episode over and over again, share it with someone who you know needs it. Her story is truly a comeback story. It is a testament to what God can do when you are humble, when you are obedient, and when you are open to God moving in your life. So I pray that this episode blessed you, but that it also taught you and that you learned something that you did not know before. So I'm going to let you guys go, and I look forward to being here with you again next week for another episode of the Six Figure Setup Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.
Did you enjoy today's episode? Well, now is your chance to like, subscribe, and share. Let us know how much you love the Six Figure Setup Podcast by leaving a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to see all the visuals for this and other episodes. Share this episode to social media and tag us using the social links in the show notes. Thanks for listening every week.